Hello, guys. Hello. Welcome back to my channel. Well, today, guys, I'm here again with Rosemary Broco, Coach Rosemary Broco, and we're going to be talking about relationships. If this is your first time here to my channel, would you consider subscribing to the channel? Certainly hit the like button and the notification bell so you'll be notified every time we do an upload. Well, guys, we're talking about relationships today, and they can be not all the time, but problematic, and in my experience. But I'm going to let Rosemary Broco kind of introduce herself, and then she'll start, and then we'll go back and forth. So y'all hold tight.
Hey
Hi, Rosemary. How
everyone.
you
Hi Cheryl. Hi everyone.
doing?
So I'm Rosemary Bracco. I help people resolve and dissolve trauma from their childhood and programming and demons that are hanging out from their past and affecting their current inner state and outer state so that they can build a life that is aligned with the deepest and truest part of themselves.
Exactly. Yay. Oh my goodness. So that's a lot, and it's so I wanted to before we get really like into it, Rosemary. Sunday Rose, she's in the comment section. She's been super engaging with us with the information that we've been talking about here on the channel, and I just want to shout her out because Sunday. She's been here with me for a while, and she's just engaged. So Sunday, I think she's a single mom, so I know she's going to be listening to the show. So, hey, Sunday.
Hey Sunday, I've seen your comments too. We've talked a little bit in the comment section.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess I'll start. I'll start with the relationship. So, some of my history is that I have been married twice. I'm married really young, um, 19 for the first marriage. And I was married to my husband for 16 years, and I was in love. We have four beautiful children, but unfortunately, my model relationship, which would be my home where I grew up in, was a picture of unhealthy love. Um, I'm sure my mom liked my dad at the beginning, but as time went on, they were in separate bedrooms and lots of fussing, and so my first husband, his model relationship was difficult too, and there we were, two people trying to love and didn't know what love was, and it was a roller coaster most of the time. Um, and so then I got married again years later, and I tried it again with the information that I had, and there again, I just kind of ran into those roadblocks, but that's just the surface of love. That's what love looked like to me at the time. Now I've learned how to love myself, um, and that was greatly needed. Um, and then I've learned how to. I want to learn how to love someone in the way that I'm learning how to love myself now. So if you could jump on in here somewhere, Rosemary, help me out.
Sure. So I'll give a little bit of my history.
Okay.
I'm 48 and I recently got engaged. I have never been married before. And I sort of went maybe the opposite way of you, Cheryl, where I had a lot of trauma in my childhood, a lot of pain. And so while I had relationships and some of them were 4 or 5 years, I essentially, when I was 22, I moved from Massachusetts back to New York, where I'm originally from,
Mm-hmm.
on my own. And I sort of became this hyper independent female of, I don't need anybody and I don't need anybody to take care
Wow.
of me.
Okay.
And of course, then there's the inner child who is starving to be loved and cared for and
Mm-hmm.
respected. And through doing the deeper work, you start to uncover that relationships, there's a few different aspects to them. There's like the concept of a relationship, like what
Mm-hmm.
it looks like. But within that, at a deeper level, there's what is our understanding of love? What is
Mhm,
our understanding? Where do we stand within trust?
mhm,
And how do we relate to ourselves and our own emotions? It's enormous. And that comes through many different aspects of what we grew up with, how we were treated, how our emotions were handled or not handled, right? What was
mhm,
happening and what was missing is what defined love for us, and how we attract and who and what we attract and what we're attracted to, but also what
mhm,
we perceive,
mhm,
how we what we think is going on, the
mhm,
lens that we're looking through, whether and
mhm.
it may or may not be true. So for an
Right.
example, like, yes, I attracted a lot of people who were not really emotionally available, but there was a
Mhm,
perception layer over that of
mhm.
what I expected to experience. And no matter what, I couldn't even tell you at this point how much past relationships was my perception and how much was actually the reality of what was
Yeah,
going on.
exactly. Exactly. I can relate to that. Um, Looking back, the fantasy of love for me, like I feel like I genuinely loved. Um, but it it was mostly in my head because I feel like I was, it was just I was just lost. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like, really. I didn't know what it was supposed to look like. I know you have a husband or a boyfriend or whatever, and you do things together and you kiss and hug and all those wonderful things that we do. But the reciprocation, for me, I mean, it was a lot. Looking back, it's very emotional. It's very painful, really. Um, because I really feel like I've never been properly loved at 52.
And I think
Yeah.
the question is, we talk about what is it supposed to look like, right? We all talk about that. And I think one of the most challenging places, especially for women, even more so than for men,
Hmm.
is being able to admit to ourselves what we actually want and need. Getting
Hmm.
really in touch with, what is that? Because we are kind of, even by society now, modern day society, sort of taught that we're supposed to be independent. We're not supposed to be needy. We're not supposed to want too much. And to really kind of sit with ourselves and say, well, wait a minute. What do I want and what do I need? And instead of writing it off as I'm not supposed to want that, really
Hmm.
understanding that if that's your desire and that's where you are and that's what you want, like, everyone wants to be supported. And I'm not talking
Hmm.
about I want to sit home and do my nails while someone else makes the money. I'm talking
Right.
about real support. Like, I can come to you
Hmm.
with something that's vulnerable and emotional, whether it involves you or not, and it's going to be received, and I'm going to be supported and understood, those types of things. And if we don't have that within ourselves first, we can't have it with someone else. And what I mean is, if we haven't started to understand and accept our own emotions, whether someone else is willing to accept them or not, we're not going to perceive it as they are. We're not going to be able to have that level of trust where we can share and we are expecting it to be received well and
Hmm.
supported.
Exactly. I get that. Yeah. That was none of the things that I thought about it at the time. There was none of that. It was just everybody just had a boyfriend and did things together, and but as I got older in the relationship, I'll say around 32, 33, I realized that I wasn't being supported at all, especially emotionally, you know. Um and so I couldn't figure it out, like, why? You know what I'm saying? I'm doing all the wonderful things, but I was very codependent and a chronic people pleaser. Um, I just have been taught that way. That's just what it was. And so when it came down to Cheryl, how do you feel? What do you mean? I don't know what that is. You know what I
Mm.
mean? How do I feel? It doesn't matter what I feel like. But there were other people around me who were not like that, but I just was like that until I met you. Until I met you and was able to tap into my feelings and say to reparent is a good word. So I'm reparenting in love now. Hmm.
And I think that's the most important part, is reparenting and realizing that what was programmed in from our childhood doesn't have to be reality. And so, again, learning, for me, a huge part of it was realizing that my emotions do matter, because
Yes.
I would label it as I was emotionally neglected when I was a kid. My parents just didn't have the wherewithal, the skill, the understanding to be there emotionally. And
Mm.
so, and I'm a highly sensitive person. So I was super sensitive and super emotional and super intuitive. And not only was that not addressed and supported, it was
What is
insulting.
that? Right.
Yeah, it was like, well,
Exactly.
you're too sensitive, you're a drama queen, who do you think you are? And I'm pouring my heart out to you. What do you
Yeah.
mean? So that's what I was experiencing
Yeah.
for many, many years in relationships. And it didn't start to change in romantic relationships and platonic relationships until I
Hmm.
got to a place where I really knew and believed that my emotions are important and that they matter.
Yes.
And that's work you start with yourself that technically might not seem to have anything to do with a relationship, because you're not working on a relationship, you're working
Hmm.
on
On you.
yourself.
Hmm. Exactly. And then once you do that, so tell me how, well, we might be jumping ahead, but so how do you get from, when do you know, after loving yourself and attending to your emotional needs, validating yourself, feeling your feelings, when do you know it's okay to love somebody? When do you know?
When you feel like you're ready.
Yeah.
Like, there is no rule about
Special time.
that.
Yeah.
For me, it happened like literally, I was just like, I'm taking some time off from everything. I'm just going to have fun and I'm going to actually start dating. I haven't dated in a long time. And it happened like that,
Just like that.
because I guess because I was ready and I was open to it, but I wasn't in like a desperate need for it. It was
Hmm.
just like, I think I'll open up to this. This might be fun. Haven't done this in a while. Um, but I just felt like I was ready. It just sort of
Ready.
happened. Um, and I think if you're someone who's like dying for a relationship, or you're in a relationship where you're not satisfied and you're not happy, is to step back and ask yourself, like, what's missing from the relationship, and then use that as a mirror to start working on what's going on within you. So I don't mean anything about self-blame. What I mean is, if
Hmm.
you're in a relationship where you feel like my needs aren't being met, or my emotions aren't being met, or I'm not being supported, I'm not being understood, any of those things are a
Hmm.
clue to
Hmm.
what's going on. And well, how do you feel then? Ask
Feel.
yourself, how do
Hmm.
I feel about my emotions? How supportive am I with myself when emotions come up? Am I hating myself? Am I running from them? How are you treating yourself within the realm of whatever's going on in your relationship? And again, not to try to change the person or the
Hmm.
relationship, or self-blame that whatever's going on in the relationship is your fault. It's not that. It's just using it as a gauge, like, oh, this is showing up in my experience.
Hmm.
So what does that mean for me? And how can I use this as a way to understand myself and my needs and my hangups better, so that
Hmm.
I can work through those things?
Okay. So it's like, for instance, if someone is in a relationship and they're not happy and things are like they're sad a lot, I would think that they would want to back up from the relationship and start checking into themselves and finding out what makes them happy and all those types of things. Because why would you want to stay in a relationship and this bad vibes and you don't feel good and you're sad all the time, you cry all the time, and all that kind of stuff? Don't you think it would be time to dissolve the relationship and maybe to, to start just working on loving yourself? What you think?
I think it's a very tricky place to
Really?
say whether a relationship is ready to be dissolved, from the outside. Obviously, if someone's in a relationship where there's domestic abuse, that's
Mm-hmm.
a different situation and you need to get yourself out of it. But if you're in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship where you feel like you love the person and they're willing, they're capable or something like that, you can
Work on it
mentally and emotionally pull back and work on yourself. I can't
while
say
in the
for
relationship.
anyone. What?
While in the relationship. Yeah.
For
Okay.
some people, that's the only place to start because they're not ready. Whatever is going on inside of them, they're not ready to leave the relationship. And so I think it would hold a lot of people back to say, well, you need to dissolve the relationship and then go work on yourself. It's like wherever you are, whatever, and even financially, sometimes people can't make that decision. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of different things that
I
come
see what you're
into
saying.
play with dissolving a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, if you feel like it's time to dissolve the relationship and work on yourself, and that feels like your life path is leading you in that direction, then
Then
do
do it.
that. But
Yeah.
if you're incapable for whatever reason, then don't use that as an excuse to not work on yourself. Start working on the deeper stuff. And then whether you're meant to stay or meant to go will reveal itself as you move through the deeper work with yourself. And it will be easier than sitting there going, well, I'm supposed to force myself to walk away from this relationship. And until I do, I'll never be okay. That's not really it. That's a lot of pressure we
Mm-hmm.
put on ourselves. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
start where you are, follow your
Right in the
intuition.
relationship.
Right.
Okay. That sounds great. Because a lot of people, I guess you're saying, like, if you are dependent financially, you might can't afford a place to stay or whatever. People have different situations, so I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. That would
And
be
even
wise.
emotionally, sometimes people just aren't, whatever it is, whether it's insecurity of being alone or a fear of an underlying fear of proving to yourself that things never work out for you. Like, there's so many underlying things that can keep someone wanting to stay. And if you're in that place where you're like really battling that with yourself, then either
Mm-hmm.
way, just start working on the deeper stuff with yourself. Start asking yourself those deeper questions like what are my needs? Even just taking out a piece of paper, not doing it in your head. So much shifts when you actually write something down as opposed to run around on a hamster wheel in your head. But if you
Mm-hmm.
take out a piece of paper and you just write down, like, what are my needs from the people around me, whether it's a romantic relationship, like in general, what are your needs? What do you ideally want? We often think about relationships as what do I want? Well, I want a guy with, brown hair and green eyes and who's artistic and makes X amount of dollars a year. And that's all fine and good. You have your tastes, but what are the
Mm-hmm.
underlying things that you
Mm-hmm.
want to have in a relationship? There something in the neighborhood of trust and respect. What do you want them to have?
Loyalty,
Like a big thing for me.
empathy. Mm-hmm.
Yes. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted someone who had a moral compass of their
Yeah.
own. That was the biggest
Mm-hmm.
thing for me. Someone who has honor and integrity within themselves that they had before they met me and that they'd have if they weren't with me, that is
Mm-hmm.
theirs and it's part of who they are. Like getting to those deeper levels. What do you want to feel like in the relationship? Really start getting in touch with what those needs and desires are, because even just having that clarity is very helpful.
Wonder if somebody is on the other end of the Zoom and they're listening to us and they're saying, but is that realistic? Can you desire and then want and then get that out of life? Can that happen?
My answer to that is of course it can, and you know it because you have a knowing inside of yourself that can't settle unless you do have it.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, just
Absolutely.
search yourself. If it's a I have to have this, then guess what? You'll
I,
have it.
I was getting ready to say, I was asking myself that those questions I just said to you one day. But like, Cheryl, really? Can you really, is this really like, you say you want a man who's capable of emotional empathy and who knows how to be loyal and who has a moral compass like you said. And then I checked into myself and I was like, oh, well, I have a moral compass. There was a situation one night with an old fling, honey. Ooh, child, I just think he was fantastic. And it was 2 o'clock in the morning, and my husband was at home, and we were out on a reunion thing late, and he was there. And then he caught me outside before I got in the car, which I knew he was going to do that. And then he says, "I know you're going with me." And then I said, "No, I know I'm married." And he said, "Are you serious?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I saw him not too long ago. And he says, Cheryl, it's one thing about you. You don't play around when you marry. I said, no, I don't. So then I was like, that's what I want. I don't want to have to worry about what my man is doing behind my back. I don't want that. And I think for a lot of people, they say, well, Cheryl, that is not possible. Yes, it is. I'm not the only person in the world. Rosemary, I'm sure you're like that. Yes, it is possible. Yes, it is. I can't
Absolutely.
wait. Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's a really good way of thinking about it is, well, if I exist
If I can do it,
and I'm loyal, then there has to be
yeah.
other people also who are loyal. And again, I think the process of sitting down and writing these things down, and even just when I work with people, we talk a lot about creating space. Like if you feel
Mhm.
something, like say you're writing it down and it comes up, oh, I don't think that's possible, or is that really possible? Spend a couple of days just allowing yourself to feel the desire and to feel the feeling of I don't know if that's possible, because just creating space, right? Like even right there, now you're doing the loving yourself thing. You're honoring your feelings. You're not insisting you have to change them right away. You're able
Mhm.
to sit with yourself and hold space for that. And that will start to shift, especially if you like write it down or do a vision board. Like I like to do
Mhm.
vision boards with images and a lot of words. Words
Mhm.
always work for me. So like you said, loyal, on
Mhm.
someone who's loyal, someone who has honor and integrity. These are words that I would put on a vision board. And then to just allow that to sit, to recognize, oh, I have a feeling in me that this isn't possible, but I also have I have a need for this. I have
Mhm.
a need for
I
that,
have to. Yeah.
especially when you're talking about male female relationships and that concept of masculine and feminine, and that someone who has integrity and is loyal and can be that creates an atmosphere of safety.
Mhm.
And so it's like, oh, you want to feel safe in your
Mhm.
relationship. And for a
And
lot of us, we didn't feel that way as kids.
right. Exactly. I never put those two together. Mhm. I just had to write that down right quick. Yeah. So relationships are um it takes work. I wonder, is it always, are you always working? Not that working is bad, but just, are you always working on it?
I think
Do
it's
you
like
think?
anything, it's an ebb and a flow. You know, sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't, sometimes you are, sometimes you aren't. Even for me, I've never been married before. I've never been engaged before. I just got engaged. And so, you know, things come up, especially when I have had so much family trauma. The
Hmm.
more my relationship becomes family, the more my subconscious mind, not my conscious mind, associates that with, you know,
Trouble.
pain. Right. So it's just recognizing it and working on it. But when you're with somebody who is also self-aware
Hmm.
and does know how to love you, then the atmosphere is supportive of that. So it's not like you don't have to obsessively work on yourself, because you can bring things to your partner and say,
Together.
this came up, you know, my history, and this came up,
So
you know,
how
and so
important
you're
is that?
supported.
How important is that for people with backgrounds like ours to partner with someone who has that type of knowledge and history of those type things? How important is that, do you think? Do you think that?
I don't know that they have to have their own knowledge of that. I think it's anyone who's in touch with themselves on some level is going to understand, oh, you were abused and violated for the first 20 something years of your life. That's probably impacted you. You know what I mean? Somebody, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out. You know, and then to someone who genuinely cares and loves and supports. Again, I think that there aren't really any blanket like, oh, if you had this when you were a kid, you need this now. I think we're all individuals and things affect us, even though there are some things that, you know, are common denominators. But there are
Okay.
different, we all have different needs. We have different personalities. We have, you know, so I think it's important if it's important to you.
Okay. What about the emotional intelligence piece?
I don't know that
That's important.
anyone, no matter what their history is, could have a relationship with someone who lacks any level of emotional intelligence.
Well, that's been my well, that's been a lot of my history, Rosemary. Seriously.
My history too, you know, my
Okay.
past as well. We also need to factor in, there's something beautiful about getting older.
Hmm.
Because, you know, you think back to when, you know, everyone that I talk to, and it's mostly women, but we start to get fed up around 35 and we start really doing some sort of work sometime after that, right? There's like, you have to mature and age a little bit before, and it actually, I think it gets easier because you are older and you have more experience. It's a lot easier, I think, when you're a little bit more mature, to really contemplate and understand, like, oh, my feelings matter and they have to matter to the people around me, than it is to do that when you're 25.
Yes, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
just a different phase of life.
It is. I remember I saw a live that I did on Facebook before I met you, and that was the title of the live. My feelings matter to me. And when I went back and looked at it, oh, I love to watch stuff that I did prior to any of the work, and I could see the need to be validated. I could see it easily. Um, I could see me saying, but I have feelings. Listen to me. I need to be listened to. You know, this matters to me. And I could see all of that. But I didn't know that that's what I was doing. But it's just subconscious wise, I knew, like, wait a minute. Everybody is walking around like everything is okay and but no, my feelings matter to me, because the way that I was raised, it's like, you just be quiet. Don't say anything.
Be quiet and look good. That's what I
Yeah.
grew up with. Be quiet and look
Yeah.
pretty.
Mm-hmm. A client of mine said the other day she is about 64. She said the way that she was raised, you don't talk back to anybody. And if you don't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And she said when her parents died around 50 something is when she got her voice, because she
Mm.
literally kept that rule until they were gone. So not being able to speak and say what you want, and then just think about that person trying to have a relationship. And this person happens to be single. She's been single for a long time.
I
Yeah.
love that you brought up the concept of being validated,
Mhm.
because this is a tricky kind of double-edged sword concept for a lot of people, where in one way we want to be validated by other people, and then in another
Mhm.
way we want to be in a place where it's I don't need to be validated by other people, and that,
Mhm.
it's a fine line for codependency, because codependency is looking for validation from external sources.
Mhm.
And I think when you get to a place where
Sorry, y'all. Sorry.
you're comfortable um with yourself, and you can
Mhm.
self-validate your own feelings and all of that, when
Mhm.
you are in a partnership, sometimes maybe you're confused, you need to make a decision, you're not sure which way to go. We all get, knotted up sometimes, and being validated by someone externally can be very healthy if we're not dependent on it for our own self-worth. When you're in a relationship and you can say, you know, you did X and it made me angry. And oftentimes there'll be a little bit of a trigger in there, and there'll be an argument maybe. But when you're
Mhm.
with someone who can come back and say, I heard you that you were angry about that, and I do have a tendency to do that, and I apologize and I'm going to work on it. That you're being validated right there
Mhm.
in a very healthy way. It's
Yes.
not that you don't know who you are, don't trust your own feelings or whatever, but it was just validated externally because the person was healthy enough to say, hey, you know what? I thought about what you said, and I get why you felt that way. I do have a
Right.
tendency, whatever. That's
Mhm.
validation. So it's making sure that, again, when you get in touch with your needs, that you're not completely saying, I shouldn't ever want to be validated by anyone for anything. Of course, we need that in a relationship.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Just don't want to depend. When you depend on the external stuff, that's when you start getting into codependency. Like, I need you to validate me so I can trust what I'm feeling. It's about trusting your own feelings and being able to sit with them enough, oftentimes before you even present it to the other person. A lot of times, especially because of my past, it will be my first thing is, if I'm feeling something negative, it will be
Mhm.
like, I will ask myself, what am I feeling? And is it coming from me or from them? And I might have to sit with it for a couple of days to see, because often when you get in any sort of argument with your partner or someone you're very close with, there's usually two aspects to that. It's not all one person or all the other person. It's usually some
Mhm.
mix of the two. So being able to sit with and validate that for yourself first, and then bringing it to the other person and having
Mhm.
them validate it, that's a healthy relationship. That's
Yeah.
healthy back and forth.
Mhm. That's beautiful. That is the goal, guys. And I hope you guys are enjoying the live. Please leave it in the comment section. I mean, the video, and leave it in the comment section below. Yes, ma'am. Is there anything else you want to focus on with relationships? Um, I guess me personally, relationship right now for where I am right now is just not what I'm doing. I just can't. Not now. But I'm happy though. I've been single before, but this single is different from single before. Single before was like just staying safe. This single is just like, sure, I'm just so proud of you for just loving yourself. That's the difference.
And I
That's the
think
difference.
that's an important distinction. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
after I had done a lot of deep work, even though I knew at some point I was going to want a relationship, there was a time where I knew I didn't want one. It was just
Mm-hmm.
now is not the time. Someone actually mentioned a book to me, Calling in the One, that's like 7 weeks to creating to attracting your soulmate or something like that. And
Mm-hmm.
they mentioned it to me, and this was a few years ago. And I was like, I'm going to order that book and I'm going to put it under the bed because the reviews are really good. And you're telling me you met your someone. And I think that's really cool. And I want the book, but I don't want the one right now.
Okay.
It literally
Put
sat
it
under
under
the
the bed.
bed for a couple of years because I was just, that just wasn't where my focus was. There were other
Mm-hmm.
things that I was focused on. And to be honest, when the point came where I did open up to it, it was completely unexpected. Like I just literally woke up one day and was like, I'm going to take some time off, not going to take on any clients, not going to do any marketing. I'm just going to take some time off. Few months, I'm just going to have fun. Maybe I'm going to date. Like it just sort of literally, it just sort of happened that the timing was right.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again,
I'm
it's
so happy for
honoring
you.
where you are and what your needs are, like feeling out the energy in your own life. Like, does it feel like the right time to be in a relationship? Does it feel like the right time to work on you? Like, we're all having an energetic conversation with our lives. And
Mm-hmm.
there are hints and clues and feelings and intuitions that are guiding us in what direction we're meant to go. We all know that. If we're quiet enough, we know that.
Mm-hmm.
We can feel it in ourselves. So it's just a matter of listening to that. Like you're saying, it doesn't feel right to me right now to be in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. Maybe you're focusing on other things and there are just other things on the front burner. Maybe there have been recent changes in your life and you're not ready to pull in another change with having a relationship or whatever. On the other side of that, maybe you're feeling desperate, like you can't function, you're not happy, the one thing that's missing is another person. Then maybe it's time to take a look at the deeper aspects of yourself so that you can be
Mm-hmm.
more open and receptive to attracting in whatever it is you're looking for.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I got my focus on I got my focus on other things right now. Just my own personal goals. And that's my making me happy right now. But when the time is right, it's gonna be beautiful. I do leave that much space for when that time comes, but yeah, yeah.
Well, I was so hyper independent that I was like, well, when that
I
time comes, what does it even mean when you're, in your mid 40s? Because one thing I had attached to a relationship was I'm never going to live alone again. And I had glorified this because I lived in New York City in an apartment by myself and was making tons of money for so long that it was like, I don't ever want to not be in that space ever again. Like I was like, any relationship I get in, eventually I'm going to want to be by myself. Until I got in this last relationship and that vision that I had glorified of being by myself, living alone, started to feel lonely and not even just because of this specific person. It just changed my perception of how I was viewing. Like I was definitely, some part of my psyche was glorifying being alone, probably for fear of being hurt, but it changed my perspective and I started to see it in a different way.
mm, that's beautiful. I don't know, I have to do some more work and try to figure out what this is all about. But as of right now, it's just seems like this is what I'm supposed to do at this time. But what do you guys think on the other end of the video? Let us know in the comment section. Are you ready for love, or are you like me? Are you accomplishing goals and just working on yourself, or are you really afraid? What's going on? gonna be interesting to find out. But
Mhm.
Miss Rosemary Broco is in love. I'm so happy for you.
Thank you.
And you totally, totally deserve it. Is there anything else you want to talk about in terms of relationships?
I don't think so. I think the one piece, if I haven't drilled it home enough already, is that people just take a pen and paper and really start
Right.
being honest with yourself about what you want and need in someone else and in a relationship in general, because that will open up a lot of, it will be very revealing to sit and
To
do
just
that
write,
with yourself. Hmm.
feel your feelings. All
Hmm.
right. I guess what we will talk about the next time. Will we talk about that? How do you do that? Sit with pen and paper because
How
they
do you
might
do
not
it?
know. Mm-hmm.
Um, just sit and ask yourself, what do I want and need from a relationship? And it could be like, everyone's different. It could be like a whole paragraph of stuff, or it could just be
Mm-hmm.
words. For me, it would probably be pages of things and then words that signify everything that was in all those paragraphs. Like you might start out with just free flowing of like, I want someone, like you said, I want someone who I can trust and who has a moral compass and this and that. And once you get all of that out, it could be like, what are the key words? Someone who's honorable, someone who has integrity, someone who's loyal,
Mm-hmm.
someone who's trustworthy, someone who's empathic, caring, whatever those things are, just so you can start to feel it more fully within yourself as a reality.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. That makes sense. So for you guys that are in the comment section, I would love for you guys to do exactly what Rosemary said, whether or not you're in a relationship or you're single. Just sit down and write. And then just give me a couple of things that you pinpointed in the comment section. Um, do we have your email? We have your email and everything. Did we pin it? We did. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so, yeah. So thank you guys for coming today. Rosemary, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and thank you. I thank your audience for being welcoming and accepting me here.
We appreciate you very, very much. And we know that these videos are adding quality, and we know. So listen, guys, if you all can reach out to Rosemary, you don't have to come through me to do that. You can talk to her in my comment section. She has a channel as well. I'll repin it in this video. Did you pin it in this? You put it in there. We'll do that. And so we'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you, Rosemary, again, very, very much.
Thank you, Cheryl. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.